This has been one hell of a stream prep. Let me just tell you. Hi, welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back again with another live stream where um, Geeks issues prevent me from getting started for a good 30 minutes. Isn't that the usual way things happen here around here? Only half an hour late. Look, I'll tell you why it happened, and I'll tell you all the other things that went wrong. But you just gotta give me a second to take a breath because this has just been kind of a nightmare. Okay, so I try to start the stream, and I'm putting together the notes file for today's stream, and I try to save it, and it says no file, no space left on device. So I'm like, okay, I've seen this before. It's probably a Geeks thing. I'll open up DRED, and I have 96 gigabytes of space left on my drive. So obviously I'm not out of space. So it's usually an inode issue where Geeks has eaten up all the inodes from all the symlinks that it creates. So I go try to run Geeks GC, and it can't even run Geeks GC to clean up all the stuff because there's no space left on the device. So I had to restart the machine and then come back, and it still didn't have enough space. So I had to go delete some files, and then I was able to run Geeks GC. Okay, great, right? Great. Now I've got some files, some space freed up. It actually deleted about 100 gigabytes worth of files on the machine. But then the problem is I got to run on Google Chromium. And I don't install on Google Chromium as part of my profile because I use it like once a week. So I use Eshell, and it has to go download like the entire stack for on Google Chromium. So that takes another 5 minutes for it to download everything that it needs. And also while it's hanging, trying to get to the 9-gig substitute server at the same time. Okay, great, that's fine. So I get on Google Chromium up to share my screen to the other machine, and then go on the other machine, and Emacs has disappeared. I'm already running stuff for the stream in the Emacs session. Then I try to run the automation I have to launch MPV to play the music, and then I can't get the volume to fade out to go into the stream. So literally everything I try to do to start the stream today has just been nothing but trouble. So excuse me if I seem like I want to complain a little bit, but it wasn't very fun. Anywho, that's what happened to me. This is why you shouldn't be using something like Geeks to do weekly live streams, because it just ends up being a huge problem. But I still want to use Geeks. Don't ask me why. I think I must enjoy pain and problems in certain cases, not in all cases. All right, so hello to Leonix, Glenn, B-Chow, Case. Good to see you, Case. Fade, Judy, let's see, Alejandro, Leonix, Peter, Ashraz, left pad, SC or S copy altogether. Let's see who else. Ewig. Let's see who else. Zaman. There's a lot of stuff in the back scroll here. I think I said Judy before, but I'll say Judy again. Big Edie, Trev or Treve. Let's see who else. Summer showed up and she's giving me hell as usual. Let's see who else is here. There's too much chat. What's going on in here? It's not like I was late or something. CMAC says, can this be solved with Guile? I think that Guile is part of the problem. I don't know. What else? Who else? Who's here? Haven't trusted a drop of what in days? All right. Case, what's going on, man? What are you doing? I'm sorry that you don't get the nice, normal background music in the stream today, but that's just not going to happen. Is Peter... Peter keeps touching his YubiKey in the chat. What holiday was it yesterday, Mjolnir? I don't know which one that would have been. Okay. On the YouTube side, hello to Jerry Darshak, GPS, Mjolnir. Nice to see you all. Jerry says, I'm not here. I don't believe you. Are you supposed to be sleeping? Like last time? Okay. Oh, Juneteenth? See, this is how like disconnected I am from the world and everything. I have no idea what's happening anymore. Ending of slavery in the U.S. Well, of course, that's a holiday worth celebrating. But also, I'm just in my little bubble here, and I'm not paying attention to much of what's going on in the world at the moment. Hello to Dominic. Case says no. Who knows why? Okay, so today we'll talk about, yes, I'm outside of the US. I've forgotten about all the holidays. That's true. That's for sure. CMAX says, how much more familiar are you with Bluey this week? Well, I'm not. My child is. One of my children are, but I'm not. There's been a lot of Minecraft playing going on this week, though. That's for sure. Not me, but my daughter. He's in his bubble on his Greek fishing island. You can't fault him. I'm not on a Greek fishing island. Come on now. I wish I could play the audio because I feel so weird not hearing the music behind me right now. Big E says, you're missing out if you're not watching Bluey. I've seen enough of it just over the shoulder of my kid while she's watching it on a tablet. Also, she played the Xbox game for quite a while. There is an Xbox Bluey game. Seems pretty good. All right. There is no background music, Ashraz. I'm going mad too because it's driving me nuts. If I turn it on right now, you know what? Let me do that. Hold on. Let's do this. I'm just gonna turn the the desktop audio down to where it's not so loud. There we go. How about that? Is that level acceptable so that we all can not be freaked out just hearing me talk without the music in the background? Because I'm kind of freaked out. Mjolnir says, I'm busy gaming on my days off. I'll see you in the vibe. Well, have fun, Mjolnir. Plop, plop, plop. That's right. It's because I'm changing the volume in Pulse Audio Volume Control. Oh my God. It's a bit loud, is it? There you go. How about that? Too loud. Come on. Don't be messing with me because I'm going to turn it down too much and then it's going to be too low and nobody will hear it. It's not? What about now? Can you hear it at all? What about now? It's not changing. I didn't change it in OBS. I didn't think I needed to. Give me a sec. How about that? Is that better? Must be lower now. Yeah, I can't actually turn the whole thing down in, thank you. Can't turn it down in MPV at the moment. What a pain. Slightly lower. We should write a scheme program to change stream value. I wrote Emacs Lisp code to do that, and it's not working right now. All right, let me turn it down a little bit more. This has just been a total cluster F, if you know what I'm talking about. Good Lord. What a nightmare. Leftbed says, thank God you're not doing this professionally, otherwise this would be embarrassing. It is embarrassing. But at the same time, I don't really care, you know? It's Friday. I'm gonna go drink a whiskey after this is over with. So I don't really give a nothing. I mean, I wanna put on a good show and everything, but at the same time, like, I'm not gonna stress over it too much. I'm just having fun. Aren't we all having fun here? You know, isn't this fun, just watching me screw up and make it part of the storyline for the first 20 minutes? Don't get too excited, Summer. It's Johnny Walker Black Label. It's not like it's anything special, okay? Friday the 13th. You know, I forgot, Jerry. Last week, it was Friday the 13th, and I didn't even mention it on the stream. I can't believe I forgot. That would have been an excellent opportunity to do something really spooky. Vibe streaming sounds like something very different. I don't want to know what you have in mind. All right. It says, so you have a straight job now? Is that instead of having a crooked job? I have a job. I haven't started yet. MPV won't place down Arch Linux. Go to the wiki. Anyway, okay. So hey, what's the news this week? I don't know what's happening, okay? What's the news? What's going on in the world? Or at least in the sphere of system crafting. Anything interesting happening? The only thing that I could think of is I saw something from Andrew Tropin. Which one is it? This one? He wrote an article about having done some work to make Guile stack traces better, which is kind of a cool thing. Worth checking out. People should look at that. Read Andrew Tropin's article about improving Guile stack traces. There you go. There's some news. Summer says, I'll be right back. I'm going to go to the stables and show David Wilt a princess. And Summer, come on now. You got to quit it with all the normal life things that you do every day. The normal, everyday human being life things. You came here for the news, Nagatani? Well, I don't really have any. Okay, what else is going on in the world? Hello to Dulce. 2.5 years since the last Flux harmonic transmission. I kind of rolled that into System Crafters though. I mean, we've been doing more game jam streams in System Crafters. You know, I miss it. I miss doing Flux harmonic, but that was, I mean, I don't know. A lot of the live coding stuff is really fun for me and like the handful of people who come and join, but not enough people join for it to be a long-term thing. Case left? Come on, man. Ashra says we could always look at Sasha's blog. Yeah, we did that a few weeks ago. Darshock says I installed Emacs on Android this week. Still don't know what I'll do with it. It's pretty useful. I installed Emacs in Android using Termux, and I was using it to manage my grocery list. That was pretty much the only thing I was doing with it for a while. Sounds like a pretty pointless thing to do, right? But I was, running around in the grocery store using Control A, Control K to delete the lines that I had in my grocery list. So that's how you know I'm a real Emacs nerd. I'm going and marking off items in my grocery list using Emacs key bindings in Emacs in a terminal on my phone. Nakatani says, I feel like Emacs Android would be great with a real keyboard. Yes, it would be. I keep trying like the small Bluetooth keyboards, but they're all terrible. Like the foldable compact ones and stuff. Isn't that what Orgsley is for? Every time I try to use Orgsley, I'm just disappointed. That's just me though. F-Droid's Emacs is good with the hacker's keyboard. Yeah, the real Emacs port to Android kind of need to have a keyboard or like a decent keyboard used with that because it doesn't have good touch input capabilities yet because Emacs was not written with mobile phones touchscreens, which makes sense, right? But maybe eventually we'll have like a touch menu where you can tap and hold and get a menu of things to do. Peter says, why? A decent normal Bluetooth costs just as much. I would really like the Newfie keyboards for on the go. Haven't heard of that. But why? Orgsley's great. Summer says, hi. Princess says hi too. So we have a horse watching the stream now. So I would say that's a step forward in the demographics of the people who watch this channel. So thank you, Summer, for introducing the equine family into the stream. It's a hoof forward. Thank you, Ashraz, for correcting my terminology. I appreciate it. All right. Any other news? Dolce says, even the biggest live coding artists are really small in the grand scheme, kind of depressing. I love it too. Yeah, I mean, some of the good ones, like let's say Choding, however you pronounce his name, he's got quite a lot of people watching him, and he does a lot of good stuff. But I don't know who else. I guess Pirate Software maybe is doing it, but he kind of got in trouble for being a jerk. They haven't found out my jerkness yet, so I haven't gotten in trouble. I'm not a jerk. Really? Am I? Okay, so let me just get into it because I've already wasted so much time. Pirate Software is not really coding a lot, though. I have no idea. She knows my face. That's gross. I've spent a lot of time with horses. They have huge noses, right? I don't think I want a horse nose in my face. Is he not? Is he not coding that much anymore? Is he just pontificating in his deep voice? I can't even speak as deep as that guy does. I don't know how he gets such a deep voice. Is that like a voice changer? Or is he actually like a baritone kind of guy? A lot of game streaming? That's boring, dude. But I guess that gets more viewers. I don't know. I don't want to see people play video games all day. Well, sometimes I do. But in general, you know, coding is more fun. Or I would rather not be playing video games in a stream all the time. I would rather be coding. All right, let's get to it. So today, I was thinking that we would take a look at Emacs Shell. This is the thing that's built into Emacs. It's been there basically forever. I don't know how long it's been there, but it feels like forever. I've always seen it there. I'm sure you have too. Night HK from the System Crafters IRC was kind of telling me about some things about Shell the other day, maybe yesterday, can't remember. And it seemed interesting. And I have seen other people mention that all they use is Emacs Shell. And I'm thinking, why would people use that over the other options? So I think that it would be a good idea just to kind of look through what the features and use cases are for Shell so that you can decide whether there will be something useful for you and maybe which places in your workflow you might want to use it, as opposed to something like ansi-term or term mode or Eshell or vterm or eat, or all the other possible options you could use for having a shell experience in Emacs. So in the scheme of what's built into Emacs, like I said, there's ansi-term / term mode, there's Eshell, and there's also Emacs Shell. So the difference between these three are that ansi-term is actually a real terminal emulator, meaning that it runs your normal shell program like Bash or whatever shell that you have configured for your user, and emulates a terminal so that you can type in commands and then get output from the commands just like you would in a normal terminal emulator that you launch inside of your desktop environment. But it's all embedded inside of Emacs. Eshell, on the other hand, is all written in Emacs Lisp, and it doesn't actually run Bash or some other shell. It actually is its own shell environment that runs inside of Emacs. So there's no terminal emulation needed, at least for the sort of built-in stuff. Many of the commands that you normally use in the shell are re-implemented in Emacs Lisp. So things like ls or cat or many of the other things that you normally use that would be in like the new core utils are actually re-implemented in Emacs Lisp. Now you can make it run the real versions of those tools instead by using like star before or after the name of the command or something. So it is capable of actually launching those programs and then giving the same output into the terminal session or the shell session, let's say. But it's not exactly the same as running programs in a real terminal emulator, so that you usually end up with problems like some kind of more advanced program that you would run in a terminal like htop or some program that wants you to do input in a certain way in a terminal application. They don't work correctly because it's not a real terminal emulator. It's really just shelling out to those programs and then getting the output and then putting it back into the buffer. So that's kind of like a fake shell / terminal experience, but the benefits of that are that you're running Emacs Lisp functions. You can define your own functions that do special behavior. It's generally kind of a better line editing experience because you're using actual Emacs line editing for the prompt rather than trying to type into a terminal emulator and dealing with the sort of the translation between your Emacs session and the terminal itself. Then there's the middle ground option, which is shell. And I think what shell does is that it is a normal Emacs buffer. So it's not trying to be a terminal emulator, but what it does is it runs your shell and it gets your prompt. And then when it displays a prompt on the screen, and then you type commands in, but you're not typing into the terminal directly. You're still typing in Emacs. So you're doing normal Emacs line editing on the prompt, as far as I understand. And then whenever you press enter to launch a command, it runs that program in the shell, the underlying shell, and it gets the output and then puts it back in the buffer. So it's kind of like in the middle. It's not a real terminal emulator, but it's also not Eshell where things are re-implemented in Emacs Lisp. So there's possibly some benefits to this that we need to determine by looking at the manual and maybe consulting people in the audience, and also trying things out, and then maybe looking at another package called multishell, which is something else that Knight HK told me about, and also maybe the integration of shell into the project.el package too. So we'll take a look at a few different things and see whether it's worth trying. If anybody in the audience has, or anybody in the chat has tips on what to try with shell, I would certainly be happy to hear about it. All right, let me see. Darshock says the end is nay. More horse jokes. Let me see what's going on. S-Copy is helping out, saying, thanks, Judy, for 6 months of subs. Thank you, Judy. I appreciate that. All right. Nakatani says, I use MetaX Windows-Terminal. Get out of here. Get out of here now. Just kidding. Judy Dev silently points at async shell command and compile. I actually use those way more often than shells. Async shell command, I'm basically using that to run one-off things all the time. And then compile, obviously, I use that for development tools and other random programs that I want to run. Let's see. Summer says, I'm back. I have to clean my screen, though. Yeah, because the horse licked it. I think the horse just wanted to see how tasty your phone was. Summer says, Emacs shell is great if you know eLisp. If you don't, it's like, maybe. I don't know. I didn't really use much Emacs Lisp in eShell. It's just kind of fun to set it up, but I don't know. eShell plus eat is pretty good because of the line editing experience, and then eat takes over whenever you need to deal with the launching of native programs that have, or terminal programs that have more elaborate output. Then eat translates that stuff correctly into the eShell buffer, but I've had plenty of time, plenty of trouble getting those two to work together. So, yeah. Peter says, no, TUI apps and eShell do not mix with shell neither. Yes, they won't work well in shell. That's for sure. Trev says, MetaX shell, more like MetaX smell. Parenthesis, stinks bad. Oh boy. Rugvid says, so vterm is closer to a true terminal emulator. I'm not sure if I even understand what that means. Yes, vterm is much closer to a true terminal emulator. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on what terminal emulators do. So, I think a terminal emulator is an interface. It's basically a program that interfaces with a TTY, which is kind of like a serial interface, I think. And it's just character streams, right? So there's just characters being blasted through an input-output pipe. The terminal emulator connects to that, and then whatever that character stream tells the terminal emulator to do, like print text on the screen or move the cursor or change colors or whatever, the terminal emulator does. That also includes accepting input from the user for programs, etc. So a terminal emulator has to be capable of implementing the behavior that the programs that are running in the TTY are using, and certain terminal emulators are better about implementing the full breadth of behaviors or control characters or codes or whatever than others. And the ones that are in Emacs are not so good at emulating a terminal as like real terminal emulators like Foot or GNOME Terminal or whatever. So I'm sure someone else can explain that better than me. Eshell says, emulating a DEC VT100. That's right. LeftPad says, to understand a terminal emulator, you first have to invent a PDP-11. For sure. Peter says, vterm and eat are mostly perfect terminal emulators. The difference between vterm and eat is that eat is written purely in Emacs Lisp, and it does not need a native C module compiled for Emacs to operate correctly. vterm does. So that is one thing that kind of makes it more difficult to set up vterm at times, is that it needs that natively compiled module for Emacs. LeftPad says, it's only X weeks until you start your own stream session before David and have your fans raid his streams. She will probably get more viewers than me, especially if the horse is the one that's on the screen. So I think that's the way to go about this summer, is if you want to start streaming about Emacs, do it. You should speak on the stream, but only have the horse visible, okay? As if the horse is the one that is giving the stream. So it would be like Mr. Ed, but for really, really nerdy people. That's right, LeftPad, because obviously her stream would get a lot more viewers than mine, then she could send all of her viewers to me. That's totally silly. Are you kidding? That's a great idea. I'm full of great ideas. Everybody should really just be taking the ideas that I present and using them, because you're just leaving money on the table. Eshell, who wants to learn about that? I just came up with the stream at the last minute. CMAX says, does anyone know Mr. Ed anymore? No, it's black and white, which means that anybody who was born after like 1990 is like, what the hell are you talking about? Hey, Drew. Drew says, how do I get evil Vim binding through Emacs to a terminal emulator? You have to turn it to care mode, I think. It really depends on what you need to do. Judy says, vterm should work pretty well. You may have to look into evil collection if you haven't set it up. Yes, I agree with that. All right, anyway, so inspired today's stream. Just want to give him a little bit of credit there. All right, so what's the difference between care mode and semi-care mode? I think that care mode is literally taking the independent keys that you're pressing directly through, and semi-care mode may allow you to use some Emacs key bindings or some general bindings that you might need, I think. CMAX says, Mr. Ed, the original talking editor. The reboot should be Mr. or Mrs. Emacs. That'd be pretty funny. Okay. So, shell mode. The major mode for shell buffers is shell mode. Many of its special commands are bound to the Control-C prefix and resemble the usual editing and job control characters present in ordinary shells, except that you must type Control-C first. Here is a list of shell mode commands. Well, first of all, how about we just launch shell mode? So shell, boom. All right, so it kind of looks like a normal shell, right? It has my prompt with the pentagram that Cal keeps complaining about. I just haven't gone back and changed it yet, so sorry. But that's actually coming from my bash shell configuration, normal bash prompt. I can type ls, okay, fine, great. I can cat things, cat December something something, 15. Completions are working. They're actually coming from Emacs if you didn't notice that. Look at that, cat, deck, tab. That's Emacs completions there. So we're not getting bash completions here. We're getting Emacs completions, which is kind of interesting. So December 13th, we can cat those out. Looks good. Let's see. But we go up and down. Do we have history, meta? Okay, so we got meta N, meta P. We get the history items, which is good. I don't know where those are coming from. Are they coming from bash? Could be coming from bash. Or something else. Who knows? Prove your shell is bashed via echo $shell. It's bash, buddy. With a long path from Geeks, for sure. Is Geeks doing the colorization of the commands here? Meta X shell doesn't read my Z shell RC? Okay. See ya, Nakatani. Let's see. Peter says, how does that even work? Which one? I don't know. I think it must be understanding... well, hold on. Let's check this out. If I go down one level... It seems to know, though. How does it know? Because it's got this path here as if it knows that I changed directories, right? So now if I say ls tab, it's getting the right files. And if I click on IRC tips, it completes that. So that's kind of an interesting thing. You can ask describe care about the colorization, type in echo Eshell and describe care. Yeah, we could do that. So let's see. Describe face even. Font lock variable name face. So it is Emacs coming up with that, it seems. Also, Control E, Control A. I can go like normal Emacs line editing. I can also undo deleting things from the line. So blah, 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 blah. I can undo and I can go back as well. So you can do normal Emacs line editing here, which is cool. Let me turn on KeyCast tab bar mode. Okay. Did I just hum the melody of Super Mario 3D World? Probably not. It would be totally by accident if I did. Totally by accident. Tim says, Bash and Emacs both get history from read lines, so how do we tell which it is? I don't know. It's a great question. Let's see what meta p is bound to, or what command meta p is bound to. Comment previous input. So if we look at the definition of comment previous input, cycle backwards through input history, saving input. So it seems that this is actually coming from Emacs. But I don't think I ran update system, so I don't know why it's coming up with that. I didn't run it that recently either. Also, let's check this out. Async shell command. Okay, those are separate, it seems. Anyway. Let's see. Checking the chat. Judy says, from my understanding, vTerm does not support the Kitty graphics protocol. That protocol is relatively new and only a few full terminals are even implementing it. Yeah, those things are kind of special. There's extension protocols effectively, so I wouldn't really expect any Emacs focused terminal emulator to use those yet. Okay, cool. So return binding, send the current line as input to the subshell. Any shell prompt at the beginning of the line is omitted. See shell prompts. We're gonna have to look at that and see how that works. If the prompt is at the end of the buffer, this is like submitting the command line in an ordinary interactive shell. However, you can also invoke return elsewhere in the shell buffer to submit the current line as input. What does that mean? So, Control C, Control P. Yeah, so look, I can jump to previous prompts using Control C, Control P, right? And then Control N. If I press enter on this line, it runs it again. So apparently that's something. You can actually jump back to a previous command and press enter, and it will run it again at the latest prompt. That's kind of cool. And this is correct because I'm actually not in the same directory anymore. So if I were to go back into live streams and then go up here, press enter, it will run it and spit that out. That's interesting. Why would that be useful? Well, probably if you're scrolling back in your terminal buffer history and you see a command that you ran and you want to run it again, you could run it again that way. Press enter inside the line of the prompt for that given execution. Could be useful. I don't know that I would use it. I would probably just use meta p and then find the thing in the history that way. Summer says, I use atene for history. I don't know how you would pronounce that. Okay, tab, complete the command name or file name before point in the shell buffer, completion at point. This uses the usual Emacs completion rules. Okay, so this is Emacs completions. with the completion alternatives being file names, environment variable names, shell command history, history references. Let's see, if I were to say echo $tab, okay, so it gives me all of the available environment variable names, which is cool. So sway sock, press enter, there you go, you got the socket. For options controlling the completion, see shell mode options. We definitely want to take a look at that. All right, meta question mark, display temporarily a list of possible completions of the file name before point. So June, meta question mark, making completion list. Why would I need that? Possible completions of the file name before the point. Why not just use tab? Huh. Interesting. So I think it's probably because you would need to have like /June and hit tab. Why doesn't it complete right here? I need like ls jun. Ah, that's weird. I guess it may have utility, like you're in the middle of typing a random command and you have to complete a file name. Maybe it makes sense. I don't know. All right. Control D, either delete a character or send EOF. Typed at the end of the shell buffer, this sends EOF to the subshell. Typed at any other position in the buffer, this deletes a character as usual. So, Control D, node. Geeks shell node. Am I gonna make a mistake by doing this? Let's see. The non-geek substitute server is constantly a problem. In fact, let's do this. Substitute URLs equals https bordeaux.geeks.gnu.org. Let's not worry about the other substitute servers. Hopefully this won't take long. So what I'm trying to figure out here is if Control D inside of another program that's running is going to work correctly. So you can exit it. Ashra says, have you ever thought about hosting an in-house non-geeks mirror with a 1-day delay? Why? We kind of need to be up to date with what's on the repos. Oh, I forgot to run node. All right, so JavaScript sucks. Just kidding. Control D. Okay, so that worked. Let's do this again. What am I gonna do? Oh, this is interesting too because the shell history of Emacs is being used to type commands into node, the node REPL. Summer says, does anyone know what he's actually doing? I'm testing out an actual terminal program, a REPL in the terminal with shell, okay? Just to try Control D. So the point was, I should be able to go in the line and press Control D, but then if you get to the end of the line and press Control D, it actually is supposed to send Control D to the underlying program, which it seemed it did that time. Fine. Control C, Control A, move to the beginning of the line, but after the prompt, if any. If you repeat this command twice in a row, the second time it moves back to the process mark, which is the beginning of the input that you have not sent to the subshell. Normally that's the same place, the end of the prompt on this line, but after Control C space, the process mark may be in the previous line. Okay. Control C space, accumulate multiple lines of input, then send them together. Command inserts a new line before point, but does not send the preceding text as subshell, at least not yet. Both lines, this one, the new line before and the one after, will be sent together. I gotta see what that means. I have no idea. You do multiple lines? Ooh. Who the hell knows? I don't know the point of that. Kill all text pending at the end of the buffer to be sent as input. Sent as input. If point is not at the end of buffer, this only kills this part of the text that precedes point. Kill all text pending at the end of buffer to be sent as input. So let's do this. Let's go back a few words. As Control-C, Control-U. What would that be useful for? Control-C, Control-U. It eats everything up until the prompt. What's the use case? Can you think of a reason why you would want to delete things before the command? Maybe like an environment variable or something that you put at the beginning of the line? And if the point is not at the end of buffer, this only kills a part of this text that precedes point. So if I go here, Control-C, Control-U, I mean, I guess it just deletes, or it kills a line, which means that it saves it for you in the kill ring. Control-Y will paste it again. Sure. Okay. But what's the difference between that and just using Control-K? Like, Control-K, Control-Y. It's the same thing, right? Summer Emacs is Bordeaux always drunk? No, it's not drunk. In fact, it's the one that works. I know why you ask. Control-C, Control, was it backslash? Send quit signal to the shell or current subjob, if any. Cool. Control-Z, Control-Z, stop the shell or its current subjob, if any. This command also kills any shell input pending in the shell buffer and not yet sent. Peter says if you're running multiple commands, there's a failure halfway through. Maybe. So look, let's see. I'm going to run node again. All right, so Control-C, Control-Z. That didn't work. Control-D, bye. Okay, so Control-C, Control-O. Delete the last batch of output from a shell command. It's useful if a shell command spews a lot of output that gets in the way. Now this is pretty interesting. Excuse me, actually. So in a shell, if you have something that has a lot of output, like say this one right here, the one with node, you can press Control-C, Control-O, and it will delete everything before the prompt. Now this one's not working correctly. I think it's because it can't recognize where it is. Let me just do a few of these. Control-C, Control-O, output flushed. Is that right? All right, here, look. LSAL, Control-C, Control-O. That one worked. It was able to delete up until the prompt. And it tells you output flushed. So yeah, the idea is that if you have something that prints a lot of output and you don't really want to see it in your output buffer, you can press Control-C, Control-O to just get it out of there. And then Control/ can undo that too. So you can put it back if you decide you want it. Summer says, why not just use clear? Maybe there's other output in the history that you want to see. I mean, why not just do things the Emacs way and not the normal shell way? All right. What else? Control-C, Control-E. Oh, wait. Control-C, Control-S. Write the last batch of output from a shell command. Hold up. Control-C, Control-S. Oh, you can write it to a file. So, dir.txt. How about dir.txt? There you go. You get the output of that command as a file. So that can be pretty useful, I think, if you want to just take the output of some command and turn it into a text file. Let's delete that, though. I don't want that there. Bye. All right, so Control-C, Control-R, and Control-Meta-L. Scroll to display the beginning of the last batch of output at the top of the window. Also move the cursor there. So Control-Meta-L. Where are we? What's the other command? Control-C, Control-R. Okay. Why is it doing that? Is it literally the previous one? Scrolls to display the beginning of the last batch of output at the top of the window. So it doesn't go up further than just the latest one, apparently. Fine. Scroll to put the last line of the buffer at the bottom of the window. Control C, Control E. Okay, that gets you back down to the bottom of the shell. Cool. Control C, Control F. Move forward across one shell command, but not beyond the current line. Move forward across one shell command. What the hell does that mean? Oh, is that like foo and bar and baz? Is this kind of like what that is? No. Uh-huh. So it is able to recognize the multiple command format. I guess that's what that is. So foo, semicolon, bar, semicolon, baz. Is that gonna work too? So Control C, Control F. Yeah, that works like that too, apparently. Blah. Wait, hold on. Control C, Control F. There it is. Okay, so it does work. All right, so that's navigating within the line, apparently. You have multiple commands. Let's see, what else? Same thing with Control C, Control B. Meta X dears. Ask the shell for its working directory and update the shell's buffer default directory. Let's take a look at directory tracking too. Send invisible. Send text as input to the shell after reading it without echoing. Useful when a shell command runs a program that asks for a password. Please note that Emacs will not echo passwords by default. If you really want them to be echoed, evaluate the following Lisp expression. So apparently, there's a line you can add to make it not write out the password prompts or whenever you type into a password prompt, which kind of is necessary. Discard all Control M characters from the current group of shell output. Don't think I've seen that very often. Continue subjob. Truncate buffer. Truncates the shell buffer to a certain maximum number of lines. Okay. And that's something you can add to a hook. So output filter functions. Truncate buffers. So just to make sure that the shell output doesn't go past a certain size. Fine. By default, shell mode handles common ANSI escape codes. Emacs also optionally supports some extended escape codes, like some of the OSC operating system codes if you put the following in your .NIT file. So apparently there's some extra handling for operating system codes. Is it going to give me a pop-up to tell me what that is? No, apparently not. With this enabled, the output from, for instance, ls hyperlink will be made into clickable buttons in the shell mode buffer. That's cool. Shell mode is a derivative of comment mode. Most of the features of shell mode actually come from comment mode. You run metax comment run to execute any program of your choice in a subprocess using unmodified comment mode. Okay, fine. So, do we have that set up? Comment output filter functions. Comment output filter functions. So I have watch for password prompt, scroll to bottom, cool. ANSI color process output. So where is that coming from? Coming from ansi-color.el. Is that built in? It appears to be built in. So I think I might have added that in my Emacs config. Let's go check out my dot files. Actually, let's go to my emacs.org file. Emacs.org. ANSI color process output. Oh, I don't know how it got there. Control HM back L. Whoop, 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 whoop. Come on. Help. Help. Is that by default? Oh, okay, it's by default. That's good. Summer says, David will may sometimes not know how to do something, but no one uses the help file system faster than he did. What do you mean? I don't think so. All right, so that's by default. It actually has the ANSI color process output. That explains why we would get decent colorization, I guess. Shell. It's not giving me colorization though. Like, shouldn't ls give me colors? Anywho, So ls dash dash hyperlink. All right, so that's a bunch of garbage output. Let's try that one thing that it said. I'm gonna add that hook. So we're gonna insert that hook and then do that hyperlink deal again. Ooh, look at that. That's fancy. That's actually clickable now. Huh. Is that useful? I don't like the fact that it turned on center document mode though. Or whatever it just did. Alejandro says, but he still struggles with info. Not so much anymore. Not so much. Not so much. But clearly I'm using the website, but just because it's easier to use the website right now. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. Maybe I would put that in my config. Let me put that in the, what you call it? Show notes. That thing. All right, so try this with ls hyperlink. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Cool. So next, shell prompts. Prompt is text output by a program to show that it is ready to accept new user input. Normally comment mode automatically figure out which part of the buffer is a prompt based on the output of the sub process. Specifically, it assumes that any received output line which doesn't end with a new line is a prompt. Okay, so basically because it has a last line, whatever's at the end of that line, if it's not a new line, it assumes it's a prompt. Yes, Ashraz. Look, leave me alone, all right? I'm gonna do it this way. I know. Comment mode divides a buffer into two types of fields, input fields and output fields everywhere else. Prompts are part of the output fields. Most Emacs motion commands do not cross field boundaries. Okay, so most Emacs motion commands do not cross field boundaries, so you shouldn't be able to leave the prompt, the input text, using like Control A, Control E, etc. For instance, when the point is in the input field on a shell command line, Control A puts point at the beginning of the input field after the prompt. Internally, the fields are implemented using the field text property. Cool. I do, Summer. I really do. If you change the variable comment, use prompt regex to a non-nil value, then comment mode will recognize prompts based on a regular expression. In shell mode, the regular expression is specified by the variable shell prompt pattern. So you can customize that if you want to, but it's been working pretty well for me either way, so I don't really see a need to at the moment. Shell command history. So shell buffers support 3 ways of repeating earlier commands. You can use keys like those used for mini buffer history. These work much as they do in the mini buffer, like meta p, meta n. Inserting text from prior commands while point remains always at the end of a buffer. You can move to the buffer or to previous inputs in their original place, then resubmit them or copy them to the end. Or you can use a bang style history reference. Huh. So the shell history ring. Meta up or control up. Sorry, meta P or control up. Meta N, control down, usual stuff. Begin an incremental regex search of old shell commands. So meta R. Okay, so geeks. Nice. And if I do meta R again, does it go backwards? Fetch one argument from an old shell command? How does that work? I'm gonna blind everyone here with a non-dark mode screen. Display the buffer's history of shell commands in another window. Control C, Control L. Ooh. All right, that's kind of interesting. Control C, Control L, it just puts it to another window. You can see all the actual commands that you ran. All right. Control C, period. Huh. Weird. Control C, Control X, fetch the next subsequent command from the history. Control C, Control X. I don't know what that means. Geeks, meta R. to reuse shell commands from the history using the editing commands meta-p, meta-n, meta-r. They work similar to mini buffer history, except they operate within a shell buffer rather than the mini buffer. Meta-r and a shell buffer invokes incremental search through shell command history. How do I do that, though? So meta-r, move to an earlier item in the mini buffer history that matches the regex. So, meta R but why isn't it like going for more? Because there's more than one geeks, isn't there? I don't understand. How do I make it go back further in the history? Control R does nothing. That's really weird. Meta P? Yeah, I tried that. It didn't work. It's like the mini buffer history of the search command itself. So geeks. I would expect that pressing meta R would continue going back in the history for anything containing G, but it doesn't. Meta P didn't work. Oh. Wait, incremental search commands have their usual effects. For instance, Control S and Control R search forward, backward for the next match. All right, so apparently you got to start it with meta R. And then Control R. That ain't working. Okay, after typing MR, start typing the desired string or regular expression. The last matching shell command will be displayed. Incremental search commands have their usual effects. When you find the desired input, type return. Wait, hold on. Wait a second. Okay, now it's doing something. So, Control S. No. It's not, it doesn't work like that. It's not working. Geeks. It's not. I don't know what it's doing. I think that's actually the mini buffer history of the regex search. All right, type in geeks, right? Let's see. Geeks. Then Control S. It actually does do the right thing, I think. In fact, I think it's getting it from the bash history too, which is weird. Yeah, Control S and Control R are working. And actually, it seems to be finding more than just... Let's see. Meta R start dash Control S. Yeah, I can go through any command that actually had a file name in it, which I haven't seen before. Have you seen that before? That actually seems the right thing. So let me put that in the show notes. So history search works like this, I think. Meta R to start searching for a regex in the. We must have gotten a raid, probably, Ashraz. Meta R to start searching for a regex in the input history. Then Control S and Control R to search forward and backward. This works even for arguments, like file names. Maybe that's normal. I don't know, but it seems pretty interesting to me. But it says right here, incremental search commands have their usual effects. For instance, Control S, Control R, search forward and backward for the next match. When you find the desired input, type return to terminate the search. This puts the input in the command line. The partial input you were composing before navigating is the history list is restored when you go to the beginning or end of the history ring. Often is useful to re-execute several successive shell commands that were previously executed in sequence. To do this, first find and re-execute the first command of the sequence, then type Control-C, Control-X. That will fetch the following command, the one that follows the command you just repeated. Ah, that's kind of cool. So let's see. Let's try that. I'm going to go into the terminal. I'm going to say ls January star, ls June star, ls December star. This is total BS, but this you're going to see the point here in a second. I'm going to go back up to this prompt and press enter. Then I'm going to press Control-C, Control-X. Oh, I didn't give it to me. How about this? Let's go to the history then. Control Meta R. Jan. Okay, so I'll press enter on that. And Control-C, Control-X. Nope. 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 Not doing the thing I expected it to. And why not? Find and re-execute the first command of the sequence. How? How are you supposed to do that? No previous history command. All right, I'm gonna go back in the history and do this. Control-C, Control-X. Okay, now it works. Boom. All right, so if you use meta-N, meta-P to move backwards in the history, then Control-C, Control-X will just run the next command after that in the history. So that's kind of an interesting approach. Kind of feels like at that point you should probably have a shell script or something else. The command Control-C dot copies an individual argument from a previous command, like escape dot and bash and z-shell. The simplest use copies the last argument from the previous shell command with a prefix command in and copies the nth argument instead. Repeating Control-C dot copies from an earlier shell commands, always using the same value of n. Okay. So copies the last argument. That kind of makes sense if you are running a command on a particular file name and you want to run a different command on the same file name, then you can just, like, let's say, cat December 1, 2023, right? All right, rm, Control-C dot, you want to delete that same file. Does that make sense? Kind of makes sense. Some shells store the command histories in files so that you can refer to commands from previous shell sessions. Emacs reads the command history file for your chosen shell to initialize its own command history. The history file name is the string specified in shell history file name. Shell history file name. Nil. When it's nil, the environment variable hist file is used. Okay, that makes sense. So echo hist file. No. Okay, it's bash history. Fine. Okay. Shell history copying. Control-C, Control-P, move point to the previous prompt. Control-C, Control-N to move to the following prompt. Control-C, return. Copy the input command at prompt. Insert it and copy at the end of the buffer. So you're basically replicating Control-C, Control-P. All right, let's just go up a little bit. All right, what is it? Control C ret. All right, you're basically moving that command down to the end. Fine. Not entirely necessary. You can just press ret there. Moving to a previous input and then copying it with Control-C ret produces the same results that you would get by using meta p enough times to fetch the previous input from the history list. However, Control-C ret copies the text from the buffer, which can be different from what's in the history list if you edit the input text in the buffer after sent. Okay, fine. Shell history references. Support history references to begin with bang and caret. Shell mode recognizes these constructs and can perform the history substitution for you. Okay. Fine. What else? Running shell commands from Emacs. Shell mode. Anything else inside shell mode? Terminal emulator, interact with subshell. Is that it for the docs? Summer says, this seems overly complex for a shell to be honest. I don't think it's complex necessarily. I think that it's meant to be a better Emacs styled interface into a normal shell experience. It seems that this would be pretty useful for just running normal commands if you spend a lot of time in the shell. But should you spend a lot of time in the shell? There are other ways in Emacs to do things in a shell that you might want to do, especially like running repetitive commands with meta-x compile and being able to recompile them by pressing G in the compile buffer. I mean, it's a pretty common part of my workflow. Or running individual programs as a one-off, like async shell command. Or if you're using Git, you're not really using Git in the command line, you're probably using it in Magit or VC mode. So, you know, that kind of, for me, takes away a lot of the normal stuff I would be doing. Or, you know, doing file management in dired. So I don't really do file management in the shell anymore either, because I'm doing it in dired, like 99% of the time. So, I don't know. I think shell mode's interesting. I don't necessarily know that it is... Well, let me put it this way. If what you want is to run shell commands in a terminal emulator-like experience, but have it be more friendly to Emacs, sort of the Emacs mindset, then shell mode seems pretty useful. Ansi-term can be a pain in the ass because it eats certain key bindings, like Control-X, sorry. What is it? There's certain key bindings that you can't press in an ansi-term buffer because it's trying to send them to the underlying terminal session. You don't have that problem with shell mode because shell mode knows what it is. Eshell doesn't have these problems either, but Eshell is kind of maybe a worse experience if you're trying to use your existing shell environment. Like, if you want everything to be in Emacs, use Eshell, I guess. You want to be able to use your bash session, your bash shell, bash commands, bash history, both in Emacs and outside of Emacs, like with normal terminal emulator outside of Emacs, then maybe shell is better because you can share the shell history and everything else across them. Oh, I wanted to check out project.el. So Control-X PS will bring up a shell buffer for the current project, so you can get that pretty easily, obviously. There was also the multishell package that NightHK had brought up. This is supposed to be something for organizing multiple local and remote Emacs shell buffers. But I don't know how useful this is for people who use project.el already, because project.el does give the ability to create a special shell for a project, but it has to be for a project. So, let's see. So let's just take a quick look at what multishell is. First, I need to package, what's that thing? Refresh contents. I haven't actually updated my ELPA archive in a while. Okay, so package install multishell. Multishell is installed. How do I run this thing? See the multishell, pop a shell, and getting to a shell.md enables you to get to the input prompt and shell you want with as few keystrokes as possible. One key binding unmodified gets you to your current default shell if not in a shell, or the input prompt of the current shell if you're in one. I see. And what's the command? Meta space. Well, that didn't work. Multi-shell, pop a shell. Is that right? Okay. So it brought me to my shell buffer. If I were to go here, hit pop a shell, it goes down to the end. Okay. If I go back to this file, pop a shell, didn't take me to the right one. I don't know what criteria it's using. Universal argument provided, no name is specified, use current multi-shell primary name path. Name is specified, use named buffer. Control U, pop a shell. I see. And is that how you set what the default one is currently? So let's do that again. Multi-shell, pop a shell. I don't know what this thing's doing. So, project shell. If I'm in the System Crafter's project, does it go to the right shell? Yeah, it's the right shell, I think, right? LS content live streams. It jumps to the right place as far as I can tell. I see. If the universal argument is doubled, set the selected shell as the default one going forward. No universal argument use from buffer is shell buffer use from buffer current name path. If not an input prompt, go there. From buffer is not shell buffer. Go to multi-shell primary name current name path. I don't know. I don't know how useful this actually is. Sheesh. See, Alejandro. Okay. Well, maybe someone who knows what the deal is with this multi-shell can tell us in the comments what the value of it is. So far, it seems like, I mean, sure, it makes a quick jump to a shell buffer, but you can kind of do that already with project.el. So I'm in this buffer, control XPS, well, not this buffer. Control XPS brings me to the shell for this project. And what about dot files? Let's see, emacs.org. Control XPS brings me to the dot file shell. And they're independent shell buffers. Let's see, switch to buffer, dot, star, shell. Yeah. Shell. Okay, it does show the other shells. Shell. Got it. Okay. All right, anyway, I think shell is kind of interesting. I mean, it's not the best thing I've ever seen, obviously, but maybe it has some utility. So hopefully there was enough that you saw in this stream that makes you curious to try it out and see if it works for you and the things that you do. But since I don't spend a whole lot of time in the shell, I'm usually just running things inside of async shell command or metax compile. Not necessarily the best thing for me, but Left Pad says, obviously Emacs and Geeks are the best things you ever saw. I don't know. I guess I'm still using them. Maybe I think that. I don't know. Summer says, even if it's not the best thing you've ever seen, David Will, you made it interesting and fun. Thank you for your service. Well, thank you. I feel like it was worthwhile for me to struggle at the beginning of the stream to get it to start, just to be of service. I'm trying to think if there's anything else worth looking at. Because the manual is pretty bereft of information. Is that the right word? Insist a browser? Is that the right word? Insisted web browser. Okay, he said it twice, so he must mean that. Peter says, yes, I still think shell is a solution to a problem of different times. Probably. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in Emacs that is so old that we kind of don't even really know why it's there to begin with. But it's still good to go and experiment a little bit with it to see if it's worthwhile. I mean, I'm still using VC mode. VC mode feels pretty old for the usual standards of things that we use, like Magic, etc. But it's okay. It works. It's good enough. I literally haven't used Magic in months at this point. Ashra says, if we're looking for a topic for the last 15 minutes, plan a System Crafters virtual meetup. That would be pretty cool. Unfortunately, I have to go. I know, this is only like an hour-long stream at this point, but I gotta go help wrangle 2 kids and get them to bed. I think I might have to get out of here a little bit early. Also, I've got like literally the last possible virus one could get at the beginning of the summer. I don't know where the hell this thing came from, but I've got a splitting headache right now from whatever this virus is. So I think I'll call it here. Peter says, I literally have not used Magic in hours, maybe quarters. Summer says, I don't know why you torture yourself by not using Magic. So that I can learn things to tell all of you. I'm doing it all for you guys. Not really. I'm doing it just because, why not? It's like self-flagellation. Isn't that the whole point of using something like Emacs? It's a freaking 40-year-old program. Are we not all just self-flagellating here? I mean, sure, maybe you could say that if you're using Ed or Nano the whole time. Emacs is a little bit less like that, but still in a way, I mean, come on. Fade says, I blame Prot. Not really. Not really. Okay, I'm out of here. Hope you all have, well, I hope you all enjoyed the stream. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know also in the comments if you have any special secret tips for using Eshell so that the other members of the community can benefit from that as well. We'll be back again next week with another stream. I don't know what it'll be yet. It will probably be figured out in an hour before the stream starts. That's the way that it works here. I think it works out pretty well, right? We have a fun time talking about stuff and it just goes the way it goes. And also the stream starts about 20-30 minutes late because I have stupid issues at the last minute. Anywho, I hope you all have a great weekend. Until next time, happy hacking. See ya.